Today's AskReddit post, mental health professionals. What small things do parents do that gives their kids mental health issues later in life? Oh boy, this is gonna be a good one. Let's get started. Choosing when to give love to your child or making them earn it. Coming in and out of their lives on a whim. Constantly bringing up body image issues, especially theirs. But then buy them junk food. Oh shit. My parents have done the last one. They constantly say that I need to be healthier but then constantly buy junk food and pretty much enable these habits. I do wish I had the willpower to change though. Start small. First, make healthy lunches for yourself so you can't eat unhealthy. The rest of the day don't worry about it as much. Then a little more. Start eating an appropriate amount of granola for breakfast, instead of say bacon and eggs with cheese. I'd also start cutting out vices here. Then finally start changing your snacks and change dinner habits. In reality, it's just the consistency that's going to do it. If you mess up, don't beat yourself up, but don't let yourself get away with it either. After a few months it will be your new normal. Then you won't want junk foods as much. Edit. I kind of just assumed this was your goal. If it was, go for it. If not, ignore me. Edit. I will no longer be responding to comments. Kato PPL jumped in and are trying to argue that constipation, kidney stones and heart disease aren't side effects of eating too many eggs, bacon and cheese. I also suggest starting small with the cutting out sweets and junk. Pack a healthy meal but include a small treat with it. Don't beat yourself up about the treat either. You didn't ruin your healthy meal with a couple Oreos. Quitting cold turkey on sugar never works. Keeping busy helps a lot. If I don't have much going on, I focus on food cravings. etc. way too much versus if I'm busy I could care less what I'm eating as long as it gives my body more energy and I find when active. Cleaned up for the day. Have a list of things to get done. I crave healthier foods like salads, soups, rice and veggies, chicken, chili loaded with veggies and lean beef. Quitting cold turkey on sugar never works. Remember kids, sugar is a drug. Admit your own mistakes. My parents have never once in my life told me I'm sorry I did that, and my god is every single conversation we have a ducking battle because they just refuse to apologize. Seriously, teach your kids some humility. My parents had the mentality of I'm your parent so I'm always right. Drives me ducking nuts. I've never in my life heard my stepmom admit she was wrong or apologize to anyone about anything, let alone to me. Same here. Whenever my mom was actually proven wrong, she would just turn a blind eye to it and ignore the issue. My dad would turn the issue back on me and start calling out stuff that I've been wrong on. Or, he would tell me to shut up because and stop being arrogant. Reading all of this is making me wonder if people need to go to parenting school before being allowed to become parents. The biggest one I see is parents who refuse to take accountability for their mistakes. Honestly, it's not a huge deal if a parent ducks up. No one's perfect. It becomes a big deal when they refuse to admit they did something wrong and then blame their kid as a way of covering up their mistakes. I discovered this accidentally. As a camp counselor, some teenagers got yelled at for playing with a ball during a time when it wasn't allowed. Later it turned out that our literal boss and owner of the camp had given the ball to them and said it was okay. So clearly they had no idea they weren't allowed. I went to them and apologized on behalf of everyone, and for the rest of the camp I was their favorite counselor. You the man, Rob. This can literally stay with a kid for a long time. It confuses how they perceive authority, which leads directly to trust. You the lobster, Rob. So many things. But the biggest one that I see is not praising their kid enough. If I want my parents to take anything away from my teachings, it is that praise goes a long way. Who doesn't like being told they are good and that they did a good job? Praise for being, you are such an awesome kid. I love you so much. And praise for doing. Thank you so much for doing your chores. It is such a big help and I appreciate it so much. Praise is a life changer, builds self-esteem, self-confidence, pride in oneself and one's work. Lack of praise can make the opposite. Too many times parents feel like chores should be expected. And to an extent yes. But still telling them you appreciate it makes them want to keep doing it and motivates them. Absolutely. I had little to no praise, only criticism or told no I couldn't do said thing as I'd mess it up. Result very low self-worth, low self-esteem, massive self-doubt and self-loathing. I am a social misfit, not cool. Told no I couldn't do said thing as I'd mess it up. It's a paradox, isn't it? Parents feel like they're protecting you from failure, when as a result their child starts to doubt that they can succeed at all, and has potentially worse problems than if they had a healthy experience with something not working. Mental health professional here. These are some off-the-cuff things that come to mind. Kids learn how to treat themselves, hold boundaries, self-care, etc. from how their parents treat themselves. Parents, you are a child's model. Model self-respect and self-care. Hold yourself to high standards without denigrating yourself. You get the idea. The worst thing a parent can do is criticize providing consistent attachment. Most of us go to therapy to resolve issues around feeling worthy of what we want. Parents who shame their kids for mistakes, or even for something like crying when upset, can create these kinds of problems around emotional regulation. You don't need to coddle a tantrum, but shaming it is not a great way to teach kids to self-soothe. It is, however, very difficult not to treat your kids the way your parents treated you. I can't tell you how hard it is not to scream back at a screaming kid if that's how you were treated. There are biosocial factors that were wired into your brain long before you were old enough to procreate. Therefore self-care, admitting mistakes and getting your own therapy to resolve your own issues is key. See above. A great book about narcissistic parents and the way these sort of wounds get passed down generation to generation. The Drama of the Gifted Child. Thanks for the book recommendation. I asked this question, as I told someone else in this thread, to see what I should keep in mind should I become a parent. I just hope I can improve on my parents' shortcomings. Even if it's hard, no one is perfect when parenting. But I do want to try my best to be better than the last generation. Thanks for asking the question. My baby is 10 months old, and I've felt a significant shift from just trying to keep him alive to oh shit, now I'm meant to mold him as a human in the last few weeks. It's intense, but it's also exciting. Listen and don't underestimate their concerns. Do not try to downplay their problems by saying that they aren't a big deal. For example, if a child comes to a parent and says that they are worried about something only to be told that their problem isn't even that serious. It all comes down to age. What a 5-year-old thinks is stressful has the same feeling as to what a 40-year-old thinks is stressful. The only difference is the perspective. If you don't listen to your kids when they tell you about the little things, they won't come to you about the big things. Because to them, they were all big things. Wish I could remember who said that originally, cause it's a gem. If a young child is crying about something as if it's the worst thing that's ever happened to them, that might be because it actually is the worst thing that's ever happened to them. Yes, one day my little daughter was telling me how something bad had happened at school, small enough that I don't remember what, and she said how this is the worst day of my whole life. And I have to say I was quietly so proud and happy inside to know that her life is good enough in general, that her problems at school are what is big for her. And don't worry, I acknowledged that for her, it was. My parents used to confide in me about things that were far above my emotional capacity at my age. And to them it may have seemed small, but it made me feel like I needed to take care of them and solve their issues when I was small. They also seemed to pride themselves on never fighting in front of us. But because of that small thing we never learned how to peacefully resolve conflict, or that disagreeing with someone isn't something to be afraid of. My parents were the opposite. They would fight in front of me all the time. It made me not want to argue ever, and now I don't know how to handle being yelled at. I go into a shell every time there is conflict. Me ASF. Or whenever my dad was upset about something one of us kids did, he'd just yell and cuss at us. I literally cannot handle being around yelling. I get super anxious, and my problem solving and communication suffers from it as well. Honestly, I'm pretty sure it's why I now have an anxiety disorder. Constantly praise them for things they haven't done. Search it up. It's called the golden child syndrome. Teacher here. Dealing with these types of students can be the worst. They truly don't have a clue of reality and their snowplow helicopter parents don't either. I'm not a mental health professional, but I worked in a level 3 lockdown facility for kids to rehabilitate for a few months. The amount of kids shipped off in the middle of the night simply because their parents didn't want to deal with it was unreal. And then you find out this is what the parents did with everything. Anytime the kids had any kind of problem, no matter how small, the parents would avoid dealing with and wonder how their 15-year-old got hooked on meth. If your kid has a problem, ducking talk to them, let them vent, let them be sad, or upset or confused. Ask your kids how they are doing and actually mean it. Open up those lines of communication because I saw too many kids say, "It's not like anyone cares what I do anyway," and it's so sad to hear. What if the kid naturally doesn't like to talk about their problems? How might the parent encourage them to open up and discuss things before they spiral out of control? Probably just listen when the kid does say something. None of that he talks crap. OMFG, my parents had some ducking comment like that about seemingly every move I ever made. I felt like an alien to them. I'm still dismantling it. Me. Cleans room. Comes out with garbage bag. Dad. That wasn't so hard, was it? Me. I guess I'm never ducking doing that again. Don't expect your kid to kiss the ground you walk on and see you as a god for providing food, clothes, and a roof. That's literally the bare minimum required by law. Don't drill into their heads they owe you gratitude for giving them life. They didn't have a choice in that matter. Don't treat them like a burden. Again, it was your choice to have a child. Shouldn't have become a parent if you couldn't handle the responsibility. Don't make your love conditional, only to be given when you deign it so. Not only is that cruel, but it sets them up for failure in future relationships. Clearly I could go on, but these would probably be my tops. Blame their insecurities on their child. Project things they never got to do onto their child. Put their relationship strains onto their child. Make the child their counselor when they in fact need a professional that can give them some slaps of reality. Refusing to acknowledge the child as their own person and not the parent's property or item that says something about the parent, if that makes sense. Worked in an acute psychiatric hospital for 4 years plus. Hi, me. All of those things. Me too, mate. Me too. Recently found out it's called emotional incest. Teacher, so not a mental health professional, just in contact with many mentally ill kids. They either exasperate their kids or ignore them completely. How do they exasperate their kids? Is it a case of helicopter parenting? Riding their little butts to oblivion about every little thing? Oh yeah, this one. My best friend through middle school high school had parents like that. He couldn't do anything. He ended up getting kicked out of our school, arrested, and getting a girl pregnant. All acts of rebellion because he'd reached his wit's end. Poor guy. The worst thing a parent can do is throw a child out of their life for a minor act of rebellion. I would know. My mother threw me out for saying no. My dad left my life 3x. Did this to my siblings. 2. It was done. And is done. In his family left and right. My sis does it now. I don't want to be your father anymore. Oof. Will never forget that and cannot trust him, or anyone, fully. If your parent continuously plays games with parental commitment, you cannot expect the child to really know, value, and believe in commitment. My wife is a mental health professional, and she just said, everything. Also, the majority of mental health issues in kids are because of their parents. TBH, I asked this question to see what I should know in case I decide to become a parent one day. This isn't very comforting. Grinning face with squinting eyes and sweat drop. Not a professional but an Asian. The how many times do we have to tell you that you need to be a doctor? Look at your cousins. Man up. Mentality of parents pressuring the eldest child. Not a mental health professional, but not listening or responding when your kid speaks to you or telling them too often to be quiet. I was so shy and now I realize it was because my parents didn't listen to me when I spoke. And they made me feel like my words didn't have value and like no one wanted to hear anything I had to say. It took me into adulthood to realize that my thoughts are just as valuable as anyone else's and that some people actually do want to interact with me. When I have a kid, I will stop whatever I am doing to listen to them no matter what they're saying, and make sure they know that I value what they say. I am a licensed play therapist. It's so simple, but just acknowledging your child's feelings. I can see you're feeling sad, you're angry at me right now, you're scared. It helps children so much with mental health in the future, because they grow into adults who understand and can express their emotions. It gives children a foundation of empathy and understanding from which to build healthy relationships with other people in the future. It's critical and only takes a minute. Any suggestions on how to help an adult learn how to identify and express their own emotions? Overreacting. No matter what your kid tells you, keep it cool. Otherwise they will be way less likely to come to you with problems. This works amazingly well. My parents hit the roof for every little thing. I've always strived to not freak out or make them feel bad when things break or spill. Now my 8 and 11-year-old boys run straight to me when something breaks or goes wrong. They know I'll help and that they won't be screamed at. It's awesome to be summoned to a paint spill or a broken glass immediately instead of having them try to cover it up or make a bigger mess trying to clean it up all by themselves. And it feels so good to know they trust me and feel safe with me. I dropped a bowl and shattered it. My father has no clue how to clean anything. His first instinct is always Clorox wipes. Instead of letting me pick the broken glass up, he made me kneel over it and wipe the shards into the carpet with Clorox wipes. I tried to explain that I needed to go over the area with a vacuum to make sure everything was out of the carpet, but he told me to my face that he hoped I bled. Of course, a piece got embedded into my foot, and I tracked little droplets of blood all over the house. But I needed to clean those up as well because that was somehow my fault too. But it's fine though. He's trying so hard. Credentials. I am a therapist specializing in treating traumatized children. I also see children who aren't traumatized and adults. Answer. Characterizing behavior as bratty, manipulative, or attention seeking, especially out loud where your kids can hear you. Kids want one single goddamn thing on this earth, and that's to please their caregivers. If they knew how to do it reliably with good behavior, they would. If there are a lot of problem behaviors, there's a lot of problem parenting. This one really hits home. I've been trained to think everything I do is to get attention and it stunted my growth very badly. 28 years in, I got an autism diagnosis. Not only was it not just in my head, I absolutely wasn't acting out for attention. It's just that no adult in my environment ever assumed any different. And even if I were doing it all for attention, I can only hope a reasonable parent would assume there's a reason for that and seek to amend it. Not a mental health professional, just someone who has parents. Never apologizing. Never showing that you care about what your child cares about. Making your child feel embarrassed for doing something. Never letting your child have any secrets. Never letting your child have any privacy. Demanding ultimate respect without showing respect back to the child. Getting mad at a child for being curious and asking why. Not allowing your child to have certain friends because they're a different color or religion or anything else than you. Really, it all boils down to is just not realizing you need to treat your child with the same respect you treat other people, because that child is a person. 2. You can care about your child, teach them, be a good parent, and still have empathy for their humanity. Just be a good person to your child, please. My dad once said when I was 12 that I wasn't allowed to choose my religion because I was 12. Another time he said that I couldn't have a free will until I was older. Another time he told me I wasn't allowed to tell him to leave me alone until I was 16. TLDR. I want to ducking punch my dad in the balls. My mom used to constantly say you don't have the right to be upset about X. Every time I brought up a legit problem, my family had plenty. She told me how spoiled I was, how unfair I was being, how I had no idea what I was talking about, and how I just wanted everything to be done my way. I bet she barely remembers these things, because these were just knee-jerk, defensive reactions to being called out by a kid. Regardless, it ducked me up. Not only have I struggled with internalizing the idea that I don't have the right to communicate my feelings and boundaries, but I also really struggle with accepting when someone else is mad at me and repeat some of the shit she pulled. Gaslighting. Bro, you actually watched the whole video. I'd give you a high five if I was a human. Make sure to click the like button and subscribe for more great content. See you next time.